Moving on, we will touch on income taxes. So generally, in Ghana, our corporate income tax is at 25% January. But we know that in the extractive industries, the mining and the petroleum, they are being taxed at a bit higher rate of 35%. So that is the rule. But in our laws, if you're a company, the law make provision for certain incentives that will engender or encourage setting up of industries in various locations in the country. So this we term it as locational tax incentives. The law has been set in a way that manufacturing entities that are located within the vicinity of Accra and Tema, the 25% tax rate, which is the general one, still applies. So in effect, the proponent of the law is encouraging people to not always cite their businesses within Accra and Tema. They want them to go beyond that so that development will spread, and also people within those vicinity can also get employment. So aside Accra and Tema, if you're able to cite your business, let's say in Kumasi, Takoradi, and you're a manufacturing entity, your taxable rate or your corporate income tax is given a discount. So instead of 25%, you will be taxed at 18.75%. So these are all tax planning. If you are planning to come out with a manufacturing entity or a business which is in manufacturing setting, and if comparing all your other factors of production, if you are able to cite your entity outside Accra in other regional capitals there, you will enjoy this benefit to reduce your tax liabilities. If you are outside the regional capital, so if you take Nsawam, for instance, we know there's a company called Blue Skies located in Nsawam Stretch. They are enjoying a 12.5 tax rate. That is 50% discount of the general tax rate of 25%. So these are things that we require our people who want to enter into business to consider if it's deemed fit for them to cite their business there and enjoy this tax liability or tax incentives. They can go in for that. If we're able to acquire a free zones license, then you have a tax-free for your first 10 years of operation. Moving on, we know that government is also trying to also boost involvement in agricultural sector. So therefore, there are a number of incentives that are applicable in the agricultural sector. So what are these incentives, or which areas are these incentives applicable? So if you are into agriculture and into cash crop farming, meaning you are into cassava farming, rice, yam, or pineapple farming, there is a tax incentive for you. If you are into tree crop farming of maybe planting coconut, oil palm, coffee, or shea nut, there is tax incentive. If you are producing crop or fish or livestock, there's a tax incentive as well. And if you are also into agro processing within the country Ghana, you are transforming or maybe processing raw produce into canned or edible products, there's a tax incentive applicable for such entities. If you are into cocoa byproduct business, using cocoa as the main raw materials to produce into something else, commercial business, they are applicable tax incentives. And in terms of the sectorial incentives as well, I mentioned earlier that the general tax rate is 25%, but our people who enter into hotel industries have a reduced tax rate of 22%. So there is some tax incentive when you enter into the hotel business or hotel industry. Instead of paying 25, the government is giving you a 3% break or like tax incentive. So it's 22% applicable. Those who also go into non-traditional crops, share nut and other things, they are also made to pay a corporate tax of 8%. When you go to the banking field, if a bank is offering loan to farming entities, it means that they are supposed to segregate that line of business separately, report it separately, able to identify their profit margin out of that. The law is saying that if you are granting loan to farming enterprise as a banking entity, you tax that revenue or that profit out of that business at 20% and not 25%. The same way, if you are also granting loan to leasing companies, the 20% tax rate is applicable and not 25%. Okay, so this is a summary table on the agriculture incentive that I mentioned. So you will see that we have a tax holiday period for each of these sector of businesses, the applicable tax rate for the holiday period. So for instance, if you are into tree crop farming, first 10 years of operation, you are being taxed at 5%. So this is a concession, tax concession rate given for such tree crop farming business. Instead of 25%, 10 years of your operation will be taxed at 5%. After your 10 years of operation, depending on where you are located, the applicable rate will apply. If you are into cattle farming and your business is registered with GRA, for your first 10 years of operations, you are being taxed at 5% as well. And after that, the 25% tax rate is applicable. The same goes with the waste processing business, 7 years of operation at tax at 5%. If you are into rural banking are all taxed at 5% for their first 10 years of operation. So this is also the tax incentives that can be applied or can be used when you are contemplating on going into any form of business or any form of agriculture entity. That will help you to minimize your tax liability and take advantage of these benefits to be able to boost your bottom line. Okay. Which other incentive again do we have that also help minimize tax liabilities of entities or businesses? So here, our tax law is saying that young entrepreneur, here young entrepreneurs means that if you are below the age of 35 and below, and you are able to establish a business in the following fields, for the first 5 years of your operations, you will be exempted from paying corporate income tax. So it means that I am 35 years and below. It means that if I enter into manufacturing entity, any form of manufacturing entity, I'll be exempted for tax for 5 years. Into any ICT business or agro processing, waste processing, horticulture, or tourism business, you'll be exempted from paying tax for first 5 years of your operation. So this is a big motivation for our young entrepreneurs to enter into business into these fields, which will encourage them to also help their country to grow and develop in such areas. Which other benefit or tax liabilities do we have? Fresh graduates. So if you are running a business, you are running a school, or you are running an entity, the law is saying that if you are able to employ fresh graduates from a recognized tertiary institution in Ghana, there are some tax benefits that you are able to enjoy in deducting it from your taxable income before calculating your corporate income tax. So what does the law say? If your workforce, let's say you have a total of 10 employees, and out of that, you have fresh graduates in that And if the percentage of the fresh graduate compared to the total workforce is up to 1%, the law is saying that you need to calculate 10% of the wages and salaries of this fresh graduate and take it as a deductible expense. You will not be taxed for that amount. You are already taking a deductible expense for their salaries, but you also need to take 10% of that. If your workforce of fresh graduates exceed the 1%, but not more than 5%, you have a 30% of their salary and wages calculated and use it as an incentive to reduce your tax liabilities. Where you have more than 5% of your workforce, you have to calculate 50%. So half of their salaries will be used as incentives to reduce your tax liabilities. So this is an opener for our people who are into business and they are finding ways to reduce their tax benefits. If there are areas in your business where you can employ fresh graduates to take care of certain aspects, this is an area to help reduce your tax liabilities. I spoke about free zones entities already. So as said already, they are exempted from paying tax on their profit for the first 10 years of their operations. So if you are able to secure a free zones license, it means that you'll be exporting close to 75% of your produce externally. Then the law will grant you tax holidays for 10 years. After the 10 years tax holidays, whatever produce that you export outside will attract a 15% income tax. And any domestic revenue or any domestic income and profit will be taxed at 25%. And also those shareholders who go into free zones entities will be exempted from paying any form of withholding taxes. Okay. So there is a tax provision here on these tax concessions that we mentioned. What does it say? So it says pursuant to section 134, our income tax law says that if a taxpayer shall not be eligible for a tax concession where an associated person has already or previously enjoyed this tax concession. So if you are a group of companies and a subsidiary of your company has already enjoyed any of these tax concessions that we have discussed about, you can also enjoy the same because you are within the same group. The law treats you as one entity. To end, we have a quote here which says that tax is not a punishment for the profit that you are making. It's just a signal that your business is alive and growing. So here our key lesson is to learn how to manage it and not to fear taxation.